folks, there's going to be a major outcry. And the major outcry is going to be primarily from women. The outcry is going to be bemoaning the fact that they no longer have access to Planned Parenthood. Why is that? Because Congress is getting ready to defund Planned Parenthood. Now, I'm going to turn a deaf ear to the cries of all of those people, and in particular women, who turned around and voted for all of these Republicans who ran on the basis that they were going to get rid of Obamacare and defund Planned Parenthood. Now, anytime you hear the word Planned Parenthood, Republicans love linking it with abortion. And honestly, I'm anti-abortion, but I'm also, that ain't my business. It's the business of the person that's actually having to deal directly with the abortion. So I'm not going to try to express or place my opinion on other people. If you want to have one, that's up to you, and you are the one that's going to have to answer for it eventually. That being said, Planned Parenthood does not do abortions. They refer women who need that particular service out to a separate organization or company or doctor that does that. It is against the law for the federal government to pay for abortions. So let's get that piece out of the way right now. Planned Parenthood provides a vital service for women. It provides mammograms, it provides planning, contraceptives for women, it provides cancer screenings, it provides STD testing, etc. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't just provide those services to women, okay, of which the majority of women need those services, but the STD testing, etc., and the contraception, they also provide those services to men, okay? So you can walk into, if you're a man, you can walk into a Planned Parenthood office, get tested for an STD, okay, and then obviously be referred to a doctor in order to treat it. And you can also go in there and get condoms, blah, 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 or information on where you can go for what's the word I'm looking for the SNP, etc. Okay, so men can utilize those services as well. Here is Mr. Ryan with the words out of his own mouth on what he's going to do towards Planned Parenthood. So when it happens, I don't want to hear any of you people who voted for these guys complaining. And there are a significant number of you, especially in the red states, where these services are absolutely needed, that are no longer going to have them.
Do you think you'll be able to insure as many people as currently insured under?
I'm not going to get ahead of our committee process. We're just beginning to put this together. We haven't even gotten scores from CBO yet on these things.
Mr. Ryan, can you tell me how and when you're going to pass legislation to defund Planned Parenthood?
Well, the Planned Parenthood legislation would be in our reconciliation bill.
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. With that banal statement, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan confirmed that he and his party will try to yank federal funding from a health care provider that serves 2.5 million patients a year. And let's be clear about this so-called defunding legislation, what it would really do. It would prohibit Medicaid recipients from obtaining any kind of services from Planned Parenthood. And we're not talking about abortion services because federal law already prohibits those being paid for with federal dollars. We're talking no cancer screenings, no contraception, no STD testing, no medical services at all. The defunding will be packaged with the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, which is currently providing health insurance to 22 million people and counting. And with me now, Cecile Richards, president of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, executive director of the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health. Ladies, thank you for being here. And you know, I said as I was walking into the studio with you this morning that I think we need to be in fight mode. As women, the idea that Planned Parenthood, Cecile, the place where when I graduated from college and had no money and was broke and had a low-paying job, got all my health care, not abortion care, health care.
That's right.
That it literally will be defunded just like that. What can Americans do about it?
Well, I think what we're already seeing, Joy, is that millions of Americans are concerned. I mean, they've been writing us. Women are absolutely up in arms, and including women in the state of Wisconsin, where Paul Ryan comes from, where thousands of women depend on Planned Parenthood as their family planning provider. As you said, we're the largest family planning provider in his state. And what he is proposing and what the Republican leadership in Congress is proposing is to cut those women out off of health care immediately as soon as this bill's passed.
And Jessica, you know, we know that women of color are going to be disproportionately impacted by this. Can you just walk people through what that means in real world terms?
I think a good example comes from Texas. When we saw the defunding of a lot of the family planning services in Texas, we saw a health crisis happen. We saw health disparities happen. Things like cervical cancer, which is largely preventable. Latinas had huge rates of cervical cancer, and that's something that they shouldn't have happened in their life. If they have access to regular screenings, PAPs, mammograms, all the services that Planned Parenthood provides, those type of things would be prevented. So this is a disproportionate impact on communities of color, on immigrant communities, on low-income women and families, young people. So a fight against Planned Parenthood is a fight against our communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. No, and I'm glad Jessica raised Texas, because so 1 in 5 women in this country go to Planned Parenthood for health care in their lifetime, including me, including you.
Including me.
Okay, so here we are. And that means saying to these women, you can no longer go there for your basic preventive care. The interesting thing about Texas, which unfortunately has been sort of a cautionary tale about what happens when you put politics ahead of women's health care, they ended all these programs. As Jessica said, they shut down women's health centers. We've seen a doubling of the maternal mortality rate in the state of Texas. This is in the 21st century in the U.S. It's unacceptable. And of course, one of the biggest concerns is the highest rates of maternal mortality now are among women of color, particularly African-American women. So it is a disproportionate attack on women's health care, and particularly women who have the least access to care.
And we just saw, I want to let you guys know that Paul Ryan, there was a letter to Paul Ryan that was signed by 37 Democratic senators demanding that he not defund Planned Parenthood. Among those who did not sign it, interestingly enough, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, John Tester of Montana, and Joe Donnelly of Indiana. Are we at risk now? Is Planned Parenthood at risk of red state Democrats throwing Planned Parenthood under the bus?
Okay, I was going to do a separate video, but I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in here. All of the people that she mentioned, and in particular Joe Manchin, I don't know if they can get kicked out of the Democratic Party, but if they can, they should, especially Joe Manchin. This guy is a Democrat in name only. He's a Democrat in name only. This guy sides with Republicans at the drop of a hat. He's already stated that he is going to support Jeff Sessions in his quest to become Attorney General. Okay, so in my opinion, if especially on something like that and on something like this, if you can't see the benefit that it has to your constituents, and you are going to turn around and side with Republicans on getting rid of these things, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a Democrat. Okay, and I understand that people have a difference of opinion, but this is something that I think separates the men from the boys. If you can't see the good that Planned Parenthood does for women across this country and even in your own individual state, okay, I got severe issues with you. And Joe Manchin is one of those guys that I believe the Democrats should target to get his ass out of there the next time he comes up for election, which unfortunately is going to be 6 years from now, since I believe he just won his Senate seat this particular year. But I could be wrong about that.
I don't think they will, and I think, look, the reason they're trying to put this on the reconciliation bill is because I don't believe they have the votes in the United States Senate, and all of the states that you mentioned are states where we are there actively as a health care provider.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to know, Joy, it's like any senator who votes to end access to Planned Parenthood, because again, as you said, it's not that we're a federal line item, in the budget. This is essentially saying to low-income women, you can't go to Planned Parenthood for your cancer screenings and birth control. Any senator who votes to do that is hurting women in their own home state.
Yeah, and there was recently a very sort of real-world fundamental example of why it's so important to have these Planned Parenthood clinics, Zika. And we know that this hit the state. I used to live in Florida really hard. You had states where you had Zika outbreaks, and if you're an indigent woman, if you're a woman who's on Medicaid, if there's no Planned Parenthood, what is the option?
Yeah, there's very few places to turn, and when Planned Parenthood is being attacked and other family planning programs are being attacked, our community has no place to turn. Because of immigration status, because of income, because of they live in rural communities or communities outside some of the cities, there's no place to turn. So what will happen is that these women will just not get care.
Yeah,
and that's a travesty.
And we know that last month President Obama, he issued an executive order blocking states from doing just that, barring states from denying federal money to Planned Parenthood. But in an instance like Zika, where it's a pregnancy-borne virus, meaning you need to know you're pregnant to know that you're at risk if you were exposed, and you can't get these services.
No, it's a place there. And I think, look, it's a perfect example, Joy, of the danger of putting politics ahead of women's health care. I always say, like, we have millions of patients come to Planned Parenthood every year, and they're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're independents. They're not coming because they're making a political statement. They're coming because they need access to affordable, high-quality care. Half of Trump's own supporters, his voters, don't want Planned Parenthood to end access to care. And so I think it is important to remember this is a nonpartisan issue. This is an issue that affects millions of American families. And I think the double whammy we're seeing here with the threat to overturn the Affordable Care Act, 55 million women getting birth control now at no cost, the lowest unintended pregnancy rate in 30 years. That's what's at risk. And this has been the interesting thing, and women are smart. We have been flooded with calls since the election of women trying to get into Planned Parenthood to get their birth control now before it's overturned by the government.
That's terrifying. I mean, there is CBO has put out a statistic that 25% of patients currently using Planned Parenthood would have no access to care. And can you guys just reiterate, this is not about women seeking abortions. This is actually about health care, right?
I think that's an important thing that is sometimes is lost in this, is that federal funding has been blocked from paying for abortion services for many years, and that's wrong, and that should be overturned. Absolutely. Yep. But what Paul Ryan is saying, and what incoming Vice President Mike Pence have wanted to do, is end access to preventive care.
Yep.
And that means millions of women who are getting family planning services that are absolutely the reason why they're not getting pregnant when they don't want to be. I mean, this is, so my fear of Jessica used the right word. This is going to be a public healthcare disaster for women in this country, and particularly for women who have the least access to care.
Yeah. And we saw this in Indiana, in Pence's own state.
Yeah.
He defunded these programs. We saw an STI outbreak amongst women.
Right.
In places like Texas, we saw the rates of unintended pregnancy and birth increase quite a bit. We heard stories of women splitting birth control pills to make it last longer. So this is the kind of things that happen when they attack women's health and women's funding.
Yeah, and it's ironic because more unintended pregnancies is actually going to increase the number of women seeking abortions, and then the number of women who will die trying to seek them illegally. It is frightening. It's frightening. Well, Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas and Cecile Richards, these airwaves are your airwaves. Yeah. Come back anytime. We need to keep this in front of mind for women. This is an emergency.
Yeah. It is, and I really hope, Joy, that every person, woman, man, teenager who's hearing this show calls Paul Ryan. This is so important that he hears, not from us, but he hears from folks in his state.
And we know that it works because we just saw it work before. When the people call, Congress reacts. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
All right, so just quickly, for all those Republicans that are anti-abortion and screaming blue murder, that we should delegitimize abortions. Well, Planned Parenthood helps with contraceptive services, which by the very definition stops unwanted pregnancies. So that in itself would knock down the number of women seeking abortions. So you want to get rid of that so that there are more pregnancies out there, so that there are more women who want to obtain abortions. what you're doing absolutely doesn't make sense, and it's working against the good of especially the women of this country who absolutely need these services. Again, if you wouldn't mind, please hit like, subscribe, share the video, and hit the notification button so that you are made aware of all new videos. Have a good one.